What would you do if the lights went out today? You have any idea what you would do? Well, there's been a lot of conspiracy theorists talking about the lights going out for a while. If you haven't noticed, they go out in other countries quite frequently here lately. All of that started around last October. You're not going to get a bigger warning than this to the American public. Fox News, Doug McKinnon, will you survive the coming blackout? It does not say, is there going to be a coming blackout? From Fox News, it says, will you survive the coming blackout? Shouldn't have to read any more than that. But we'll read through a little bit of it. There are many seemingly never-ending debates, Republicans versus Democrats, impeach versus don't impeach, capital punishment versus life in prison, wall versus no wall, legalizing marijuana versus not, self-driving cars or human drivers, Red Sox versus Yankees, takeout versus home-cooked, or Gone with the Wind versus any other movie. A bunch of division right there. All of these issues are stunningly important, right up to the second where cataclysm falls and creates a nightmare scenario that so many fear. The cataclysm is a complete loss of electricity in every mode of convenience and survival we take for granted. Okay, in between that paragraph and the next paragraph in the article is a link to, it says, is North Korea's EMP threat real or something out of a James Bond movie? The answer to that question is yes. It is real, and it is something out of a James Bond movie. The largest red flag on this issue in years just waved in South America. Last weekend, tens of millions of people in Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay found themselves in a complete blackout. In one moment they had electricity, the next moment they had none, and they were catapulted back to the 1800s. Only much worse. People in the 1800s were not dependent upon electricity for their jobs, money, communication, internet, transportation, education, security, medical services, prescriptions, water, and very lives. The national power grid of the United States is truly a mess held together with, as the joke goes, by not much more than baling wire and chewing gum. The average age of large power transformers in the United States is 40 years. 70% of all large power transformers are at least 25 years old. It's a little wonder that according to data from the Department of Energy, the United States suffers more blackouts than any other nation in the developed world. Did y'all hear that? The United States suffers more blackouts than any other nation in the developed world. Do you ever hear about that anywhere else? Do you hear about how unstable our electricity grid is? Usually not in mainstream. This is mainstream. I usually don't like mainstream news, but I believe this is a warning and maybe our last one. The overall system is so weak, so taxed, and so vulnerable that in 2003, over 50 million people in the United States and Canada were hit with a cascading blackout simply because a tree branch fell on a power line in Ohio. I'm not sure I totally believe that. I believe that may be a little propaganda. They're going to prepare you for a tree branch falling on a power line and, I don't know, wiping out the power to the U.S. maybe. Because the infrastructure is so antiquated, weather triggers multiple blackouts per year in the U.S. Weather triggers multiple blackouts. Geoengineered weather, big storms, flooding, power outages, it's all coming together, people. Pay attention. Blackouts which collectively cost the nation upwards of $30 billion in spoiled inventory, lost wages, and repair of the grid. Unfortunately, weather is becoming the least feared trigger of a blackout. Yeah, unfortunately. In the age of terrorism and increasing cyber threats, our power grid getting taken down by a hack is no longer seen as a question of if it will happen, but rather when it will happen. Well, I guess that's easier than trying to build up a storm with chemtrails and ionospheric heaters and lasers, and let's just be able to flip a button, right? The U.S. government is so rightfully fearful of this that last November it ordered DARPA to war game a complete cyber takedown of the U.S. power grid. The United States government is so rightfully fearful of this that last November it ordered DARPA to wargame a complete cyber takedown of the U.S. power grid, an exercise they are now wisely running on a regular basis. They are running on a regular basis an exercise where they run a war game for a complete cyber takedown of the U.S. power grid. Think about that. According to the Department of Homeland Security just last year, hackers strongly suspected to be Russian, of course they were, gained access to a number of utility control rooms in the United States and got to the point where they could have thrown switches. Or DARPA could have been there because they opened the door with the key and been ready to throw a switch and blame it on Russia at any time. Just an option. In the blink of an eye, you will lose access to money, food, gasoline, communications, medicine, medical attention, heat, air conditioning, and security. The DHS report further stressed Russian government cyber actors targeted government entities and multiple U.S. critical infrastructure sectors, including the energy, nuclear, commercial facilities, water, aviation, and critical manufacturing sectors. Aside from the Russians, the Chinese, North Koreans, and other terrorist states, and even cyber extortionists are targeting our power grid on a daily basis. The clock is ticking. I'm going to post a link to this article down below if you want to keep reading the little details. At the bottom, it says, make a plan because you will be on your own. So, I'll ask you one more time. What will you do if the lights went out right now?